All right. Well, good afternoon, Sunday school teachers. Today we're talking about how do you know when a child is learning? How do you know when your kids are learning? I mean, this is an important topic. When we talk to our children, we kind of give it out. Sometimes we know when we're done with our lesson because we made it all the way through our notes. We know when we're done with our lesson because maybe in some churches they have a buzzer for Sunday school that lets you know that your time is up. We know that they're done because it's like everyone starts leaving and going to the service or going to the next event or whatever. But that's really not the right way to think about it. How do we know when a child is truly learning? When they're grabbing hold of things and they've taken it from you and they've got in here and then they got it into their heart. How do we do that? Well, one of the laws of teaching, which we've been covering, deals very specifically with that, and it is law number 6. So we're going to cover that in just a second. So greetings to you if you are first time here. My name is Mike Holmes. I'm the founding pastor, Sinclair Baptist Church. I've been teaching Sunday school and working with Sunday school teachers really my entire career, and it's a thrill to be with you. I hope you find this information helpful. I feel a little bit down today because I have allergies tied to a cold. Don't think I've got the COVID thing, but I do have a cold, and I might be sneezing in the middle of this, which is extremely embarrassing, but nonetheless, that's how life goes sometimes. So anyway, I started this YouTube channel specifically to help you as a church or pastors or leaders to find practical, usable things that you can have. So it would do me great delight if you'd hit that subscribe button. And then next week, we'll be able to get you some more stuff. Now, next week, we are covering the 7th law of teaching, which really has to do with the principle of reviewing and really getting it into the kids' heads so that they know it. So today's law, though, law number 6 really deals with this idea that the lesson must be reproduced into the student so that the student then can reproduce the lesson into someone else. I thought of titling this, How Sunday School Teachers Can Produce Sunday School Teachers. I thought that would be kind of a good title because it's, in essence, it is discipleship. And it is the idea that we're making someone who can go out and teach the lesson. Now, with adults, we can see this probably a little bit, more in a formal way, like you might teach somebody a lesson and then they would go out and become a pastor, a teacher, a preacher. They would take on a Sunday school class, become a teacher. If you taught someone everything that you know about like say the tabernacle, and then you say, now you teach on the tabernacle, and then they had their own class and they taught all about the tabernacle. That would be how it works. With children, though, you don't get that opportunity to kind of put them in formal teaching places. So we have to find some ways that we know that they are learning. And really, it helps us to be the better teacher. So we're making it so they are learning. And some of the kids might be catching it and others at a different level. But this little practice that we're going to talk about here today in just a minute will help other kids and start to bring everybody, notch them up. So let me grab my glasses here, take a look at my notes. The first thing that I talk about, really 3 things here that I have to help you, and I kind of keep these very succinct. One is when you're teaching is to have a question time. Now, question time is often, the way we think of it is like, does anyone have any questions? And someone said, well, how old was David when he killed Goliath? And, they have questions and different things along that line. It's great to have that. This question time I'm talking about is where you, the teacher, ask questions of the kids, where you start to pour into them and you say, what did you learn from this, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll give you some examples in just a second. So question time. The second thing we have is what we call application time. And this is where you say, okay, let's do some application time. How does this lesson fit? And then the last one would be kind of a testimony time where people can talk about how they did it. So let's dive in and give you a couple nuts and bolts on this. On the question time, this is a kind of place, again, where I said the teachers are the ones that are asking out the question. What have you learned from here, et cetera? Now, you want to start with this early in your lesson. You don't want to just start throwing out questions at the end because, number one, when you start asking questions, it's toward the end. Kids will figure that out after about 2 weeks. It's like, hey, that means she's about done. If we don't ask anything, we don't talk. Pretty soon we get out of class, okay? Because they're just that way. But when you start asking questions, start it early and have those questions kind of spread throughout. So early in the season, okay, or early in the lesson, you might ask a question like this. So let me give a little context. Let's say you're teaching about selfishness and selflessness, the opposite of that, and you're teaching about the little boy. You're using the lesson of the boy with the loaves and the fishes. So the boy gave his lunch away, and you're going to kind of make some application of that. And you've read the scriptures and kind of told the story, and you've kind of been through some of that. Early in the lesson, you can start out and you can say, what are some examples of ways where people are selfish? Now, this boy could have kept his lunch, but what are some ways in this day and age where people might be selfish? And you kind of bring that out and let the kids come up with some answers. And so what they're doing is they're setting up your illustrations for later, because if a lot of them say, well, selfish with toys, which is a big thing with children, when you get to the application later, then you can make the application about, are you being selfish with your toys? So you might ask the question, what would be some ways kids are selfish? What are some examples of this? And have them come up with some things. Partway through your lesson, you want to ask questions too. You don't want them just at the beginning. So partway through, you might ask this question, and there's a word in here I want to kind of focus on that's very good. Okay. How might some kids feel after giving their lunch away? So you've kind of talked about the boy has gone through the process of giving his lunch, and now you're saying how would some kids maybe feel or might feel about giving their lunch away? I remember teaching a lesson once along this line, and the kid said, "I'd get a spanking if I gave my lunch away because my mama told me I need to eat every bit of it." So you got to kind of balance some of that stuff in there. So anyway, it's how might some feel, and here's the thing: you put the word might, or how maybe would some people feel about this, and when you add those words in there, you get sort of more generic answers rather than specific answers. Because some kids are like, I love to give my lunch away. I give it away all the time. I'm a great servant. I give my lunch away all the time. Or others are like, I get in trouble if I give my lunch away. That type of thing. Or I only give certain parts of my lunch away. But when you say, how might some feel, you can start to direct those questions, and you can start to move those towards that specific answer that you're trying to get to, the selfishness, thing that we're getting to, and selflessness, how it would give great joy. Now, great joy comes when we start to yield and we start to give things away. And that's a very, very important lesson for our kids to learn. So, but you want to start to get these lessons go. So you see where we're going with this. While you're teaching, you are getting feedback from your kids. You are starting to work towards them getting the lesson that is no longer just out there floating around, a lesson that's on a board, the lesson here, but the lesson is starting to become their lesson. It is something that they could reproduce that week by giving away their dessert, or giving away their lunch, or giving away, their toys, or sharing their toys, or sharing their time, or sharing whatever it happens to be. So partway through the lesson, you ask some questions. Those are usually questions, and I like to ask them this way: how might some people feel if they do this? Because a feeling is much more an open-ended question than just asking, what would you think? Now, think questions, and I think we covered this a few weeks back. When you ask someone, how do you think? Okay, they're going to give you an intellectual answer. You ask someone, how do you feel? They're going to give you a heart answer. And so both of those are valid questions, and those can go in the middle. But the feeling one tends to open up the kids a little bit more into where you're kind of headed with this, that, hey, we want to learn to be sacrificial. We want to learn to not be selfish. We want to learn to be selfless. Okay, so you kind of be moving along. So that is part of the question time. The last one that you might have late in the lesson, and this would be kind of the application side of it here. What are some ways we might share this week? And again, the might question is in there. What are some ways we might share? And you probably would have kids say all sorts of different things that you wouldn't be thinking about as illustration. Maybe somebody, shares their shoes with somebody, or maybe somebody, gives their extra dry towel to the kid at swimming lessons, or, something that's like, whoa, I never even thought of that as an illustration, but that's real to them. So it starts to happen. So this is what's called the question time, Now you follow up this, and or I wouldn't say follow up. This is one way of doing it. Another one is to ask and actually get to your lesson, say, all right, now we're going to have some application time. And you use the same question. What are some ways that people might be, okay? How are some ways that we might this week be able to do something? What are some ways that boys might be able to share? What are some ways that third graders might be able to share? And get some specific things kind of in there. So that is the application time. Now, the last one to use is what we call testimony time. And these can be kind of a wild card. So, and be ready to kind of clean them up a little bit, because you could say, how is some way that maybe you shared this week, and you'll have a kid, I did, and they kind of give a few minutes of testimony. Hopefully they're really good. Hopefully they got good application. You're there kind of to straighten that out a little bit if it gets kind of crazy. I've had, all sorts of different things where I've asked open-ended questions like that and ended up getting or done prayer requests. I remember once a while back, I was at this church and I said, I want to give some prayer requests and let the little kids, share prayer requests. We're going through and, pray for my dog. He died. And, all the typical ones that kids have. And this one kid says, pray that my dad doesn't hit us anymore with barbed wire. And it was like, pray that the dad doesn't hit the kids with barbed wire. It's like, okay, we're going to be praying for that. It was like, oh my word, where do you go with, a prayer request like that? And of course, we took some appropriate things and talked to the family, see what was going on. But and nonetheless, when you have testimony time, you can have some wild card things. But let me say something about testimony time. It's real. It is real, and our kids need and church and Sunday school often is accused of being boring, and we do not want it to be boring. Testimony time will liven things up, that's for sure. It will take away some of the boredom out of there. And again, be ready, because there might be some things that you need to kind of steer it back to. So the lesson we're drawing from Bobby's testimony is that he did share. And boys and girls, we need to share like the little boy shared. Okay, how many of you this week are going to do some type of sharing, okay? And what you've done now is you've reproduced the lesson into them. Now, putting it in their own words is the law. The law of the sixth law of teaching is when they can take it and they can take what you have taught and they have learned it, they have put it into their own words, and they've expressed it out with their hands. That was what the law is. Now, very excited about these laws. These things are so applicable for Christian stuff. If you're interested in learning more, the resource for this is the 7 Laws of Learning, and it's from John Milton Gregory, and he wrote it back in the 1800s specifically for Sunday school teachers. It has been secularized because he became a teacher, actually a professor of the University of, I think he was actually the college president, University of Illinois, back in the 1800s, and his stuff became very big in education. And but if you can find the old version of it, it will be great. In fact, let me see if I can't find a link for you, because I've got the PDF links and I can put those in the notes here. Make sure that you join us next week as we hit law number 7. And law number 7 is one that deals with the idea of how to review and how to get the message so deeply ingrained into these kids they never lose it. So we're going to be dealing with that. So thank you very much for being with us. If you would hit the like button, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us the thumbs up. If you can subscribe, that would be great. We're here every Saturday about 2 in the afternoon doing these. We also have some other ones that we post that are not live like this, but they are posted. So you'll get notification of those too if you subscribe. So pictures in the background today, courtesy of one of our day camps we ran. These are where we take kids outside into the community, and have just great times. A lot of fun stuff. So people ask about them all the time. We just ran some this week. I got some next week we're doing. And God bless you. We love you guys. Thanks for hitting the subscribe, the like, the thumbs up, all that stuff. This is Mike, and I'm signing out. We will see you next week. God bless.